Hi, everyone. Welcome to the second public comment on the Family and Social Services Administration's Home and Community-Based Services Waiver Drafts. This is a recording offered to stakeholders to learn more about the current waiver amendments that are out for public comment from January 17th to February 16th of 2024. I want to welcome you. My name is Kathy Robinson. I am the Associate Director for the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. And I also have with me Clarissa Laval from the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning. Today, we're going to go over the public comments overview, how to provide public comments, the waiver transition overview, waiver draft details so that you know a little bit about what some of the proposed changes are, the updated timeline for the public comments, and how to submit public comment. So with that, I will turn it over to Clarissa.
Hello, everyone. Just to reintroduce myself, my name is Clarissa Lovell, and I am the Indiana Pathways for Aging Program Manager, which is our new MLTSS program that we are proposing. And today I want to briefly walk through for you today some of the waiver amendments and go through quickly what is a waiver amendment and provide you some background. So what is a waiver amendment? So waiver amendments are changes and updates to existing Medicaid waivers and new Medicaid waivers. And these require approval from the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, which is also known as CMS. And CMS requires a 90-day review period, and that again is for their review. And CMS has 90 days to approve or disapprove our waiver submissions. Next slide, please. So what is public notice and comment? So public notice and comment is a proposed rule, policy, or guidance that is published and open to the public. This occurs prior to submitting an amendment to the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Services, CMS, and ensures that stakeholders have the opportunity to share your thoughts, concerns, support, and also lets you ask any questions that you may have for any of the changes being proposed. Next slide. So what is the purpose of public comment? So public comment is required by federal law and 42 CFR 441.304E and F. Federal law mandates 30-day notice to ensure timeliness. And your comments, we really want to highlight, are valuable in developing and implementing these waiver changes that we are proposing. The state will consider each comment submitted for review. And this also gives us an opportunity to change areas of the waiver and propose amendments prior to submitting for approval. Updates in the new waiver drafts include edits based on the first public comment period, and we will go through those later in the slides. And also public comment, it allows a community to see what we are planning and share, and again, for you all to share both your support and your concerns for any of the amendments and waivers that we are submitting to CMS. Okay, next slide. So why should you take the time to provide public comment? Well, similar to our first presentation, it is the best way for our agency to hear your concerns and also hear your support. It also assists us in creating services that are meaningful and effective for the Hoosiers that we serve. And as we did with the first public comment period, we will upload a summary of the feedback, and it'll be posted on the website after the amendments are complete. And the public comment process, it's a structured opportunity for the state to receive feedback on the proposed changes. And, oh, thank you. And the state's role during the public comment period is to listen and to digest all the feedback that is submitted to us. And we use this to consider changes that should be made as a result. And this session is an effort to give you high-level information regarding the changes that we are proposing and updates to the waiver that vary from our December presentations. And again, we want to receive your input. And again, we will be sharing later on in the presentation how you can submit your public comments during the public comment period and where you can go for additional information on the waiver. Next slide, please. All right, so what is currently out for public comment? Similar to before, what is out for public comment that we spoke about on November 8th through December 14th, 2023. What is out is the Family Supports FSW waiver, the Community Integration and Habituation CIH waiver, the Traumatic Brain Injury TBI waiver, the Health and Wellness, also known as H&W, which was formerly known as the A&D waiver, and Health and Wellness will serve those who are under age 60. And also the Pathways 1915 BC waivers, which is including those served on the A&D waiver who are over 60, so 60 plus. However, what is different from the first public comment period is that the Hoosier Care Connect waiver, so HCC, will also be out for public comment. All right, next slide, please. And I will turn it now over to Kathy.
Thanks, Clarissa. As Clarissa mentioned, these waivers are out for public comment again from January 17th through February 16th. Where do you find these documents? So you can go to these websites. I won't read them all out loud, but these are links that take you to the Family and Social Services Administration web pages where we consistently post items that are being considered for public comment. There is also an electronic copy of these changes with the Indiana Register. We also go through them in order to appropriately notify the public of this opportunity to weigh in on things. And then for people who need a paper copy of one or more of the named amendments here, you can request a paper copy at your local Division of Family Resources. There's one in every county, and you can also access them in the Bureau of Disability Services regional offices. That was also previously known as BDDS offices with the name change recently. Just want to call attention to that. And there are 8 of those throughout the state where you could access paper copies of any of these amendments. We also will post electronic copies again at these locations. And then for Pathways and Hoosier Care Connect, you'll be able to see these through the Indiana Register as the previous amendments, but also you can request a copy of a hard copy of Pathways and the Hoosier Care Connect waiver documents at your local Division of Family Resource offices, as well as a local area on aging office. So a local AAA in your area would also be able to support you in providing you with a hard copy. So where are the changes within the waiver documents? And so we just wanted to make sure that we can support you in directing you where to find elements of change that we are proposing within each of the waiver documents. Each waiver, because they are their own waiver, they may have similar changes, but each waiver is posted separately for review. So you'll see a lot of letters here within the aged and disabled waiver, the health and wellness waiver, the community integration and habilitation waiver, the traumatic brain injury waiver, and the family supports waiver amendments. There are introductory sections of those amendments called Section 2. And that is referred to as the purpose of amendment. So each of those waiver documents, each has a Section 2 called purpose of amendment. And within that section, there reflects the primary reasons for the proposed amendments at a summary level, and generally reflects the most substantive or significant changes being proposed. So that doesn't necessarily mean all of the specific changes are highlighted there, but the major changes and the areas that are more substantial are generally listed there. In the new Pathways Waiver, which is a 1915C home and community-based waiver, and all the other waivers, there are narrative or language changes within the various sections and appendices of the waivers. Within the Hoosier Care Connect waiver, there is an amendment request overview section, and that is within that specific waiver is the section that lists where changes are found. This doesn't, the language changes themselves do not necessarily mean the policies and procedures within a waiver are changing. As previously shared in the previous public comment, many areas have language updates. So many of the waivers have adjustments in the narrative or the specific language. Those pieces have been updated to reflect existing processes that are already in place as part of the waiver administration. These changes in the language were largely made in recognition that the Family and Social Services Administration is operationally following the same procedures in several major areas of waiver operations. However, in the past, these existing procedures have been described differently across waivers because they were written by different divisions at different points in time. So this is an area of alignment that you may not see us focus too much on because they are just a recognition of operational alignment and not necessarily a significant or specific policy or procedure that is changing. So for this webinar, we will be highlighting the significant changes to the waivers following the first round of public comment. The slides here are also going to relist the waiver updates previously shared during the first public comment webinar series. So we're not going to focus this webinar, this recording on areas of language edits or minor alignments that I just described made across the waiver documents because they don't result in any pending operational change or difference. So within the home and community-based services waiver transition, hopefully many of you are aware that FSSA is working toward this waiver transition, and that means that individuals who are aged 60 and above enrolled in the Age and Disabled waiver will be transitioning to the Indiana Pathways for Aging waiver program as previously announced in 2022. The Age and Disabled waiver for ages 59 and under will become and be renamed the Health and Wellness waiver. Waiver services across these two new waivers will remain aligned for both. Individuals who are identified to move to the Pathways for Aging program will be notified in writing of that move and that change. The overall objective for this waiver transition is to just foster a positive and smooth experience for waiver recipients and providers by enhancing the Age and Disabled and traumatic brain injury waiver structure through the transition across divisions. And by March of 2024, submitting final waiver amendments to CMS. Thinking about what changes will happen to non-home and community-based services waivers related to this transition, the population of Hoosier Care Connect waiver will also be modified during this timeframe to reflect that members will be ages 59 and under, and those who are 60 and over will actually move and be served under the Pathways program. So just a high-level overview of the waiver transition that the Family and Social Services Administration is operationalizing. This is to create a new waiver and administration of the Age and Disabled waiver for the Indiana Pathways for Aging program with Indiana Medicaid oversight. The transition oversight of the current Age and Disabled waiver for individuals 59 and under and the traumatic brain injury waiver to the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. So this is to shift the 60 plus age population away from the Age and Disabled waiver into the Indiana Pathways for Aging program. And that program will be overseen by Indiana Medicaid. The other waivers referenced the 59 and under, which will be the Health and Wellness waiver, and the traumatic brain injury waiver will transition oversight to Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. The reason why we are pursuing this is to really try to enhance waiver administration across FSSA divisions while ensuring a positive and smooth transition for home and community-based waiver recipients and providers. So this is in recognition that we've gotten a lot of stakeholder feedback over the past several years about creating some alignment and consistency across waiver programs, ensuring people feel supported within those waiver systems and structures, and creating that consistency of experience for recipients. And so FSSA's recognition of this is this overall transition approach, and the implementation of the Pathways for Aging in particular was in response to hearing that population really expressing a desire to want to receive their supports at home. In thinking about this, we have been quite strategic in coordinating and collaborating within our agency, Division of Aging, the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, and our federal partners at CMS have all been very involved in Indiana's development of this waiver transition plan, provision of technical assistance by CMS, as well as internal coordination and collaboration in order to make this a seamless and smooth transition. We also have engaged in a number of stakeholder activities with consumer groups, providers, area on aging, and case management entities. The Commission on Aging and Choice Board all have had direct connection and coordination with us on making this transition occur in a thoughtful manner. So currently looking at this image is really just a reflection of what our FSSA home and community-based services programs look like today. And within that, you can see in the blue, the community integration and habilitation waiver and the family supports waiver, both being overseen by the Division of Disabilities and Rehabilitative Services. The green is what is currently being administered by the Division of Aging. And so you can see there the traumatic brain injury waiver, as well as the aged and disabled waiver, broken into those two age groups, reflective of that 60 and over population who will ultimately transition into the Pathways for Aging program, and the ages of 59 and under who will be transitioning to DDRS. I also just want to recognize here, Division of Aging will continue to be within the Family and Social Services Administration and continue to be a supportive partner in supporting the administration of these waivers, but they will be focused on the choice program, the Older Americans Act programs, and the ADRC support, as well as adult protective services. They have other operational functions that they'll be managing, as well as expanding their network and support of older Hoosiers across the state. As many of you may know, FSSA has been engaged in activities related to home and community-based services waiver redesign for a number of years. Through some targeted stakeholder engagement, some key themes were really brought forth in thinking about the approach to waiver redesign. And one of those areas was really to improve team dynamics through shared outcomes and communication. And that really is, how do we better coordinate within our support teams, within service structures, and our methods of communication to ensure that the goals and desires of the recipient are at the forefront, and that team members are all working toward the same outcome and goals for individuals. We also want to enhance case management and system navigation, overall creating an equity and continuity of experience across waiver services, and creating some consistency in the way in which case management and system navigation is supported in helping individuals live their best life. And a focus on key supports to building independence. And this is where individuals and families have really communicated a desire to have available to them the right service, supports, and array in order to truly build an independent life for themselves, where they can live as independently as possible in their community. So as I shared in the previous couple of slides about what the current FSSA home and community-based programs look like, this is the future state, and hopefully better articulates some of the information that we're sharing today about the waiver transition. But this is a reflection of what will happen when we implement the proposed waivers in July. And so you'll see in the blue boxes this shift with the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, assuming responsibility for the waiver administration of the traumatic brain injury waiver and the health and wellness, which is that 59 and under population currently on the age and disabled waiver. And then you'll also see in the grade box, the Pathways MLTSS Managed Long-Term Services and Supports waiver for the 60 and over population who meet that nursing facility level of care, currently being supported on the age and disabled waiver. So just talking briefly about each of the waivers, I'm just going to go through at a high level what some of the changes are being proposed in this set of amendments are, so that you have a sense of the specific elements within each waiver that we are proposing to adjust. You'll see that these are presented in a way to outline what was included in this most recent January waiver amendment draft update that is currently out for public comment, and what were the things that were shared during the November through December public comment period that are also going to continue to be proposed in this set of amendments. So just so you can follow along with what we are bringing forward from that November-December public comment period, as well as what are newly introduced elements to the waiver drafts that maybe you haven't seen before. So for the family supports waiver, in the January waiver amendment draft, we are maintaining the provider rates that were previously approved by CMS and made effective July 1 of 2023. This includes permissive authority to index rates in the future as the fiscal situation allows. So this really helps to position us to potentially adjust provider rates in an indexing fashion in a future amendment if we are able to do so. This also adds a priority category for individuals currently on the age and disabled waiver who are subsequently found to not meet nursing facility level of care, but do meet the ICF ID level of care, so the intermediate care facility intellectual disability level of care. This amendment also clarifies $15,000 vehicle modification cap is for every 10 years and not per lifetime of the member. So this just offers additional clarity around the vehicle modification funds available to individuals on the family supports waiver, and that cap is a 10-year, is based on a 10-year limit and not the lifetime of someone's participation on that waiver. This also clarifies some policies surrounding the allowance of services provided by legally responsible individuals to sustainably provide services with appropriate checks and balances. And this is just where we are clarifying within the service array which services can be provided by legally responsible individuals, such as a spouse or parent of a minor child. You may recall in the November through December public comment period, there were some additional changes proposed to the family supports waiver, and I'll just touch upon those quickly. We added a new employment array service called Career Exploration to implement employment transformation plan and to provide an additional service and support options for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities who are pursuing competitive integrated employment opportunities. And some of you may know that the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services has set a goal for 38% of individuals and services to be reporting competitive integrated employment outcomes by 2027. This waiver also had added a home modification assessment service, which would be an assessment that would take place to better determine and establish the needs for a specific home modification request. We also made changes to the behavioral support service and case management services in recognition of the employment transformation plan. And we made some minimal changes to service definition to just clarify service outcomes and potential ways the services could be used, and to align descriptions across multiple waivers for consistency. For the community and integration and habilitation waiver amendment overview, The new items that are being proposed in the January waiver amendment draft, again, it's the maintaining of the provider rates as approved by CMS and includes language giving permissive authority to index rates in the future as the fiscal situation allows. It revises the count of expected participants due to money follows the person. It also clarifies the vehicle modification cap to ensure that it's clear that the $15,000 vehicle modification cap is for every 10 years and not per lifetime. And to just touch on the things that were previously shared in the public comment period late last year, the career exploration service was also added to this waiver as well. Again, in recognition of the division's goal for competitive integrated employment outcomes for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. The home modification assessment service was also added to this waiver, and changes were made to the behavior support service and case management service definitions to clarify the role of these services in competitive integrated employment. And again, minimal changes were made to some of the service definitions to clarify some service outcomes and potential ways the services could be used, and align descriptions across multiple waivers for consistency and hopefully avoid confusion for recipients. The traumatic brain injury waiver, there were some changes that were proposed in this January amendment, but a lot of them are similar to the ones we just talked about. Maintaining the provider rates was also one that we wanted to include. And so we've maintained those rates as approved by CMS and effective this past July in 2023. And it also includes the addition of the permissive authority to index rates in the future as the fiscal situation allows. It adds transfers as an allowable activity under attendant care definition, and it removes the reference to exclusion for family ownership of an agency. This also clarifies that the $15,000 vehicle modification cap is for every 10 years, not per lifetime. And it also clarifies the policies surrounding the allowances of services provided by legally responsible individuals to sustainably provide services with the appropriate checks and balances, and will permit for structured family caregiving to be provided by legally responsible individual, but will not permit attendant care to be provided by legally responsible individual, such as a parent or a spouse. Things that were shared during the November to December public comment period on the traumatic brain injury waiver. Minor changes were made to the language in the waiver to align all 1915C waivers with matching language. I mentioned that a little earlier in terms of making sure that things sounded the same from an administration standpoint, since they largely operationally are. Switched the waiver oversight from the Division of Aging to the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. Added a couple of new services. So structured family caregiving is still being proposed as a new service, and the home modification assessment service is also still being proposed in this set of amendments for the TBI. And again, making some minimal changes to clarify service outcomes and potential ways the services could be used, so that people are clear on how services are intended and what potential outcomes they could achieve through those services. On the health and wellness waiver amendment, just sharing some of the things that have been adjusted for this set of amendments. There was an adjustment to the time frame for continuity of care for existing service plans to a minimum of 90-day period to match the timeframes in existing managed care programs. Following this period, this 90-day period, services may not be reduced or terminated in the absence of an up-to-date assessment of need that support a reduction or termination. So that's just to assist in recognition of the continuity of supports in that transition period. It clarifies the policies surrounding the allowance of services provided by legally responsible individuals, again, to sustainably provide services with appropriate checks and balances. This will be permitted for structured family caregiving. So a provision is included in the amendments to allow for legally responsible individuals such as spouses or parents of minors to provide services under structured family caregiving, but it will not permit that to happen with the attendant care service. This also maintains the provider rates as approved by CMS and adds the inclusive permissive authority to index rates in the future as our fiscal situation allows us to do so. It also keeps the number of waiver slots consistent with the previously approved aged and disabled slots. So it aligns with what is currently proposed, or what is currently in effect in the approved aged and disabled waiver. So this is not increasing slots. It is not decreasing slots. So we're just maintaining the number of previously approved waiver slots for the aged and disabled waiver. It also adds a reference or explanation of a potential waitlist procedure in the event that those slots, we exceed our anticipated or projected slots, and it clarifies the language on the selection of entrants into the waiver in terms of how that would work. Additionally, in the January waiver amendment, updated the cost neutrality information, which is a fiscal measure that we monitor. It also revises the language regarding when auto assignments occur for those who do not select a Pathways MCE. It applies to those transitioning from the health and wellness to Pathways at their 60th birthday. So this is just language that talks about the notification process for somebody who is 59 and going to turn 60 and going to go from the health and wellness to the Pathways waiver, and what would happen with what's called an auto assignment in the event that the member doesn't act on or choose their select a Pathways managed care entity. It also removes a reference to the exclusion for the family ownership of an agency, and it also clarifies the $15,000 vehicle modification cap is for every 10 years, not a lifetime for someone's waiver participation. And then again, just noting those things on the health and wellness that were previously shared during the November-December public comment period. And these are items that will continue to be proposed going forward in this set of amendments. Just changing minimal changes to service definitions, again, to clarify potential service outcomes and ways the services could be used, making minor changes to the language in the waiver to align with other 1915C waivers in recognition of the one division administration of those waivers. Switching over waiver oversight from the Division of Aging to the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, changing the name to the Health and Wellness Waiver, and so that it will no longer be referred to as the Aged and Disabled Waiver, and change the waiver target population to serve individuals aged 0 to 59, because those age 60 and above will be going forward in July, starting to be served in the Pathways for Aging waiver. And now I'm going to have Clarissa jump in and talk about the Indiana Pathways for Aging and the waiver amendment proposed changes.
Thank you, Kathy. So the Indiana Pathways for Aging, it is our new waiver, and it is a 1915 BC waiver combination, and it will serve those individuals who are 60 and over, who are age, blind, and disabled, and qualify for Medicaid services, and those age 60 and over who are currently enrolled in Hoosier Care Connect or qualify for both Medicare and Medicaid, or receive services on the age and disabled waiver, or who receive services in a nursing facility. So updates made in these January drafts that were not included in the first drafts that we presented on in December and November is that we adjust the timeframes for continuity of care for existing service plans to a minimum of 90-day period to match timeframes in existing managed care programs. Following this period, service may not be reduced or terminated in absence of an up-to-date assessment of needs that support reduction and termination. So I want to note here that MCEs must honor, and MCE is another name for managed care entity, they must honor existing service plans for a minimum of 90 calendar days from enrollment, unless the enrollee would like to modify services and/or providers, or the MCE or FSSA identifies a need for reassessment. And modifications to the service plan can be made based on reassessment supporting the change. And then following the 90-day continuity of care period, Services may not be reduced or terminated, again, in absence of an up-to-date assessment of needs that support the reduction or termination. And OMPP, which is the Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, will conduct extensive monitoring to ensure appropriate service planning and continuity of care practices are in place. Also, this updated waiver draft clarifies the policies surrounding the allowance of services provided by legally responsible individuals, and it will permit for structured family caregiving and will not permit for attendant care for the service. It also maintains provider rates as approved by CMS, and which will be effective July 1, 2023, or which was effective July 1, 2023, excuse me, and includes permissive authority to index rates in the future as fiscal situations allow, and keeps the number of waiver slots consistent with previously approved slots, similar to the H&W waiver. Next slide, please. Additional updates, it adds an explanation of potential waitlist procedures and reserve capacity for individuals aging out of health and wellness waiver to ensure continuity of care. It also clarifies language on selection of entrants on the waiver and revises language regarding auto assignment occur for those who do not select an MCE, removes reference to exclusion to the family ownership of an agency, and clarifies the $15,000 vehicle modification cap is for every 10 years and not per lifetime. And I want to note that some things that were previously shared in the first presentation regarding the pathways waiver drafts. And again, the waiver is a 1915 BC combination. The 1915 B waiver authorizes the managed care program, and the 1915 C waiver provides the HCBS services. And these services are the same as those currently available on the A&D waiver for those who are 60 plus. Because again, Indiana Pathways for Aging will serve those who are age 60 and above. Those receiving hospice services, when they become eligible for pathways, and American Indians and Alaskan Natives, they can choose to opt in to managed care in the Pathways program. Those who do not opt in to managed care will remain in fee-for-service, which is also known as traditional Medicaid, and they receive all the same Medicaid services as those who would be with a managed care entity. Maintenance of effort. So any changes that are around service definitions, again, they are minimal and they don't affect any services. This is again just to align across all waivers in our definitions. And all enrollees are eligible to receive care coordination. And then enrollees who have a nursing facility level of care, they will also be offered service coordination as well. And service definitions remain aligned with the age and disabled waiver. And you can find more information on the Pathways program at in.gov/pathways. Next slide, please. And something different from our previous discussions late last year is that the Hoosier Care Connect waiver is also out for public comment. And for those who may not know, those who are served through Hoosier Care Connect, also known as HCC, it provides support to individuals who are ages 59 and under who are blind, disabled, or a ward of the state through the child welfare system. And individuals expected from HCC include ages 60 and older, and individuals who receive services through a 1915 C waiver, individuals who live in a facility or institution, and individuals who also are on Medicare are excluded from HCC. And updates in the January waiver amendment draft. And so you will see in the Hoosier Care Connect waiver amendment draft that is put out for public comment, changes in this waiver include the target population to serve individuals ages 59 and under. And please note that the reason for this change is that those who are age 60 and above will now be served in Indiana Pathways for Aging, and they will move to that managed care program. And again, this posting is in addition to what was posted last year. Next slide, please. So to help better illustrate the timeline for public comment, we include this slide here. So the public comment period will be from January 17th, 2024 to February 16th of 2024. And then the waiver effective date will be for 7/1/2024. So July 1st, 2024. And this waiver effective date has not changed since our last presentation late last year. Next slide, please. So how can you submit a public comment? So comments on the H&W, TBI, FSW, and CIH waivers can be emailed to DDRS waiver notice comment at FSSA.in.gov, or you can also mail your comments to FSSA Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services. And then you just insert the name of the waiver and the public comment. And you will mail these to 402 West Washington Street, room West 453. And the PO box is 7083, Indianapolis, Indiana 46027. And if you would like to provide comments on the Pathways and Hoosier Care Connect waivers, you can email to the backhome.indiana@fssa.in.gov, or comments can be mailed to the Family and Social Services Administration, Office of Medicaid Policy and Planning, and then you call attention to Holly Cunningham Piggott at 402 West Washington Street, West 374, Indianapolis, Indiana 46027. And that concludes this presentation, and I will turn it back over to Kathy if she has any closing comments. Thank you.
Thanks, Clarissa, and thanks everyone for your interest in our home and community-based services waivers and the potential changes that we are proposing. We really look forward to receiving your public comment and feedback on these proposed changes. As Clarissa said, sharing your concerns, thoughts, and questions, and also areas of support is always greatly appreciated. And as you can see, we have taken some steps to actually incorporate some of the previous public comment into these amendments. So please know that we do look at the comments that are received, and we greatly appreciate them. So thank you everyone for your time, and hopefully this was helpful information to you.